What's going on, guys? It is the Coaster Battleman here, bringing you an awesome video. Another coaster countdown. The top 10 most intense coasters I have ridden. There are several intense coasters that I've ridden. Some honorable mentions are Goliath at Six Flags Great America, Six Flags St. Louis's Vekoma Boomerang, The Boss, Screaming Eagle, but these are the most intense coasters I have ridden. Some of these coasters are worse than others due to roughness, but some are very fun. Number 10 is the Bat, and most of these coasters on this list are very fun. But the Bat is very intense. I love the intensity level on the Bat, even though I only got to ride it twice. This coaster pulls some great G-force. It has some very fun swooping turns. Overall, the Bat, very intense ride, very fun. I really like the speed that the Bat has and the intensity and swinging that it has compared to Iron Dragon, which isn't really intense at all. Number 9 is another coaster at Kings Island. Yet again, another family coaster, Backlot Stunt Coaster. I am a big fan of Backlot Stunt Coaster due to its cool theming, intensity, and launches. There are a few launches on this ride, and there's a tiny drop towards the end that's pretty intense. When you turn back to the station, there's a drop before that's very intense. The launch is intense. That helix right after the first launch is intense. And there's some intense turns by going past police cars, which is very intense. Overall, Backlot Stunt Coaster has some very intense moments, and that's why it's on this list. And you actually black out or gray out on that first massive helix. Number 8 is another coaster at Kings Island, the Beast. Yeah, a lot of coasters at Kings Island are actually very intense, and the Beast is obviously back there behind Vortex with its vertical loops. But the Beast, let's talk about it. This coaster is intense due to its length and nice speed. This coaster is one of the fastest wooden coasters out there, and it is the longest wooden coaster and longest coaster in America. This coaster is massive, and that's why it's on this list. Due to its speed and long ride, the Beast is definitely one of the most intense coasters I've ridden. Number 7 is another coaster at Kings Island, Firehawk. Firehawk, very intense ride. It's definitely my favorite flying coaster I've ridden, even though I've only ridden the 2 cloned flying coasters. This one, which is a Vekoma Flying Dutchman and Superman Ultimate Flight at Six Flags Great America. I prefer Firehawk due to its stronger layout. But this coaster, I love its inversions. Firehawk has some very good inversions, which makes it very intense, especially that vertical loop is very intense. Overall, Firehawk, strong layout, very intense ride, and this is what a flying coaster should be. Inversion after inversion, instead of meandering around. Number 6 is Millennium Force at Cedar Point. Some of you may be surprised that this coaster is one of the most intense coasters I've ridden, but I think it's very intense. You gray out on that first overbank turn, and the reason why you should think this coaster is intense is because of the back row ride. The back row on Millennium Force. Boom, I recommend you ride back row on Millennium Force. It's very intense. You pull some great G-force. The airtime is amazing. This coaster is pure fun and very intense due to its size, speed, and overall layout. Number 5 is Invertigo at Kings Island, another coaster at Kings Island. Yeah, we got a lot of coasters at Kings Island on this list. Now, the reason why it's coming in at number 5 is, even though it's very intense and very crazy of a ride, this coaster is very rough. Like, the first time I rode this coaster, I did not like it at all. It was too rough, but the only reason why I really like this coaster is its G-force and very high intensity. That's what I like about Invertigo, but due to it being a little rough, overall, I think that's why it's at number 5. It's definitely, if it was glossy smooth, it would be probably the most intense coaster I've ridden, behind probably a few other coasters. It'll be a bit higher on this list, probably in the top 3. But let's move on to number 4, American Thunder at Six Flags St. Louis. Why do people call GCIs not the most thrilling coasters? These coasters are very thrilling. They're underrated rides. They're very smooth, intense. They have amazing ejector airtime, and American Thunder packs a great punch. It's pretty fast. It feels a lot faster than you go like 50 miles per hour. And this coaster has some insane ejector airtime. The turns are intense. The drop is a lot of fun. And I recommend you ride GCI wooden coasters like this ride in the back row. It's glossy smooth, very intense, and this is definitely the smoothest wooden coaster I've ridden. Number 3 is Raptor at Cedar Point. This is a very intense B&M invert. Definitely the most intense B&M invert I've ridden. This coaster, it ain't the largest B&M invert out there, but it isn't the smallest. And this is basically, in my opinion, Batman the Ride on steroids, kind of. Because this coaster has some great G-force. The inversions are intense and very fun. But I don't really like most of the inversions. Like that Cobra roll is kind of snappy. The corkscrews are kind of bad. But this coaster has a very strong layout, and that helix towards the end of the ride is very intense. Overall, Raptor, one of the most intense coasters I've ridden. The inversions, G-force, and helix are the reason why this coaster is at number 3. Number 2 is Top Thrill Dragster. Now, the reason why it's at number 2 is because it's a bit smoother than Raptor, and it's a lot more intense. Or not a lot more, but it's a bit smoother. This coaster's launch is so intense, especially at night front row. You'll get covered in bugs. It's amazing. But anyway, talking about the launch is so fast and powerful, launching you at 120 miles per hour. This coaster is very intense, and that closing drop towards the end is fairly intense. This ride, that launch and closing section with the drop is like the best part of this ride. Overall, this coaster is very intense, and that launch is so intense. And it's even more intense than the next coaster's launch on this list, but the overall intensity of this next coaster on this list is, Maverick. You guessed it. This coaster is so intense. The launch may not be as intense as Top Thrill Dragsters, but it's cool because you're inside a tunnel, especially when it's close to nighttime or nighttime. It's crazy. This coaster has some great G-force, and the restraints have been upgraded recently, which makes it a bit better. And this coaster has 2 amazing ejector airtime moments that are very intense. The lift tilt's actually kind of intense too. This coaster, the drop is intense. You get some airtime on that. There's some intense bank turns. Overall, this coaster is very intense, very fun, and one of my favorite coasters. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more videos.